You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker, owner and founder of Good Life Family Chiropractic. And I wanted to come to you today with another message of hope, health, and wholeness, just as we do every day here on KCRO, 660 AM out of Omaha, 106.7 FM here in Lincoln. And yes, I am the owner and founder of Good Life Family Chiropractic on the south side of Lincoln. Many of you are listening because you see me in the office and because you know that I have a radio show. We do this every single day because we are looking to transform the health, not just of the United States, not just the people in my office, but every single person, every man, woman, and child in the world. But yeah, our communities here, it makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. And so I wanted to talk today, I wanted to get some data up for you about the leading causes of death. And I wanted to get really specific with this. And so if you're following along on Facebook, you can join us on facebook.com/AskDrJake. And I've got the videos of all these radio shows posted, but I've got off to my left here a example of, or not an example, but the charts from the CDC on the top causes of death. Now, this is from 2017. Obviously, 2020 numbers are still coming in, and they're actually still analyzing the reports from previous years. But you can see here, and I've actually looked at this in comparison to the United States numbers. Our numbers fall right in line with everybody else. We are just as sick as the average American. We are just as susceptible to cardiovascular disease. We are just as susceptible to cancer. We're just as susceptible to dying from an accident. And you can go down this list and you look at this. Number one, heart disease. So even before we get there, about 17,000 people, 16,878 people died in the state of Nebraska in 2017. So, it's 100% of all the deaths, and the rate 879. But you look at what's the cause of those deaths. The number one cause of death listed on the death report was a disease of the heart. So cardiovascular disease, and you can see the codes for that listed off to the side here. Number two would be a malignant neoplasm, also known as cancer. Cancer being the number two cause of death here. That's very typical. That's very average across the U.S. And you can see those numbers are almost identical. You keep going. Chronic lower respiratory diseases, so lung infections, lung diseases. Absolutely. We've got too many people who still smoke, and oftentimes it doesn't happen with cancer. Sometimes it's emphysema. I lost a grandpa to emphysema just because he smoked and he worked in the mines. Just awful life decisions to get him there. Accidents, number four, unintentional injuries are the fourth leading cause of death. And the fifth leading cause of death, cerebrovascular diseases. So cardiovascular disease still, but more in the vascular side of that, also affecting the brain. So stroke being the number one thing there. And you keep on going down that list. You can see Alzheimer's disease. You can see diabetes, type 2 diabetes. You can see the flu listed there as number 8. Number 9, suicide. Awful thing. Mental health is real health. You can see hypertension there listed at number 10. That's cardiovascular disease, but also hypertensive renal disease, where it affects the kidneys. Nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis, also disorders of the kidneys. Parkinson's, chronic liver disease, and cirrhosis that comes from drinking. Pneumonitis due to solids and liquids, that's going to be an effect of the lungs. Choking oftentimes gets linked into that, and then septicemia being an infection there. So all other causes listed out there as well don't just barely overlaps and covers over heart disease. So you can see the numbers right there. This is just from the state of Nebraska. But these numbers are not telling the whole story. When you look at these, other than the accidents, which accidents always happen, they're always a tragedy. And if you've lost a loved one to an accident, I'm sorry. But other than accidents, these are, by and large, lifestyle preventable diseases. In fact, the research on cancer by itself from the Journal of Pharmaceutical Research, it said that 95% of all cancers are lifestyle preventable and lifestyle reversible, meaning that they're not genetic. You're not predestined to have these. And even the ones that are considered genetic, that they're governed by the principles of epigenetics, meaning that if your dad and your granddad and your great granddad all had consistent lifestyle patterns, they could actually change their genetic expression based off the lifestyle patterns to make it so that you're more susceptible to cancer. So this is real. This is real life. We're talking about the ability of your body to handle different types of infections, different types of diseases, and ultimately succumb to those. But here's the thing is we have hope. Our bodies are designed to heal. When you talk about how God created us in the Garden of Eden, he designed this physical body, the same one. Adam and Eve had this same physical body to live forever through eternity in relationship with him. He created us with an intelligence inside there, not just one that actively thinks about, but actively monitors and controls our heart rate, our blood pressure, our temperature, that controls, it keeps our heart beating and our lungs breathing, that heals a cut on our hand or leg. I cut my thumb 2 weeks ago and it's completely healed. I didn't have to think about that healing. It happened all on its own. That happens because that innate intelligence is residing inside your central nervous system. The central nervous system houses that innate intelligence and allows it to express itself across every single nerve to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. And when it's healing and functioning at 100%, you are healing and functioning at 100%. And you're healthy and you're well. But when that's compromised, when there's an interference to that, when we separate the intelligence from the brain, from the organ, cells, and tissues below, it starts to malfunction. It starts to enter a state of dis-ease. And ultimately that dis-ease leads to sickness and death. And that's where we don't want to go. So there's 3 things that can lead to that. And I've covered these before. If you've heard my show before, the first, the most traumatic, trauma, physical trauma to the spine can misalign those protective mechanisms, the vertebrae that are supposed to surround and protect your brainstem, your spinal cord, and each nerve root. When that moves out of its normal position and it's left there for 5 minutes or more, it can disrupt the signals going through those nerves by as much as 60%, just 2 millimeters. And so that creates a state of dis-ease. It creates what we call subluxation in chiropractic in the medical world. Subluxation meaning a condition of less light. This is what happened to my son. My son got kicked in the head by his sister. He was fine. No signs or symptoms. He didn't start to cry. He's a big kid. Like, he's 5 months old, but he's strong. He's actively trying to start to crawl. He's getting up on all fours, pushing himself up. He's a strong baby. He's met all of his milestones. He's ahead of the game. No signs or symptoms of anything wrong, but he goes down for a nap and he cuts out. He passes out. He quits breathing. Thank God for those the daycare workers. They were trained in how to resuscitate him. They got him breathing again, but he started seizing and he couldn't regulate his breathing. So they got the paramedics there and they got him to the hospital. And I got to the emergency room as quick as I could. And they were just trying to figure out what's going on. I went to him. I started comforting him. I put my hands on his neck. I could feel his atlas, the top bone in his neck, the top vertebra shoved off to the side. And I started to massage it and rub it back into place and adjust him. And he started to relax. His breathing started to normalize. He came out of the seizure. And I've checked him and adjusted him, multiple times through that. We went through St. E's, we did CT scan, we did an MRI, we did a blood panel. We went through Children's in Omaha and they did the rest of those tests there. And they looked at everything. They said, he's a normal, healthy kid. We don't know what's going on. And even though I told him his spine, the trauma that it had, they weren't trained in it. They didn't know how to look at it. And that's what I'm trained to do, is look for those physical traumatic things that happen. But also, it doesn't have to be a traumatic incident like that. If you were in a car accident at 5 miles an hour or more, it probably created ligament damage. That's enough to disrupt the central nervous system in that one instant. However, most of us don't have that one instant. I pray to God we don't anyways, but we do have these postural things that we do. If you're a dentist, you look down into the side every single day. I see on dentist x-rays every single time, down into the side posture. It happens like that because the pressure in time is equivalent to that pressure over a short amount of time if you have that traumatic experience. You have some of us that like to look down on our smartphones sometimes, right? We grab these things and we put them in front of our faces and we look down at it to see what's going on. We're checking our phones constantly. We work on these laptops where we hunch in and we bend over, and it creates a traumatic posture in the spine that shifts things out of position over time, slowly, gradually. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one day, it just changes and it starts to go downhill. And whether it's our neck pain or our headaches, or if it's high blood pressure and erratic pulse or tachycardia or any of those things, our posture affects our health. We see that if you have 2 inches of head forward posture or more, your risk of a cardiovascular event goes up by 50% compared to your peer group. We don't want that for you. And so that's why I'm trained in advanced structural correction. The second thing that can cause an interference to your health and lead to compromise is stress. The thoughts that we have, the thoughts going through our head. If we're either creating an environment of peace and wellness and well-being, or we're creating an environment of stress and disease and sickness. And it's what's between our ears that matters there. You absolutely, think about this. When you're stressed, what's your posture like? Are you upright? Are you straight and tall? Is your head back over your shoulders? Or are you hunched over? Are you down? Are you scrunched down? Do you feel that across your shoulders? And just try to take a deep breath from that position. Put your head down and take a deep breath, and then sit upright and pull your head back and sit in that normal posture. And breathe in and breathe out. And you can feel there's the difference in your lung function when you're upright. And that's the difference that just stress has on your posture, that has on your neurology, on how that affects your lung function. Think about what that's doing to the nerves, and think about what that does at a hormonal level when those stress hormones are hitting your body. Cortisol, it's the injection that you get when you have pain in your back, when things are going the wrong direction. Cortisol breaks down joints. They won't do more than 3 cortisone injections. They won't, because it actually breaks down joints and it's contraindicated. The third thing, the third T, really, when you're talking about what can create a system of disease in your body, is a toxin. The toxic exposures that we have in this world, whether it's something as poisonous as arsenic or mercury, or even aluminum building up in your system, or cadmium coming off of the pesticides that we put on our food. We consume that, we put that in our bodies, we inject it into our bloodstream. Those things build up and they inhibit the ability of our body to heal and function. If you need help in dealing with any of these, call our office, 531-289-7100. The first 5 callers today will get a 50% discount off of exam, off of any necessary imaging or x-rays, and then we'll sit down and we'll go through those together. That'll happen at the second visit. That visit has no cost unless there's a treatment received at that visit. Once we see that, we can start to make a plan to get you well. But you have to want it. You have to want to be healthy and well. These diseases off to the side here, the ones that affect Nebraskans, are the ones that affect all of us. But it's because of controllable factors. It's inhibiting us not just from living a full life, but living life to the full. Having that fullness and having that vitality. And if you're ready to live a full life, call our office right now, 531-289-7100. And we will be happy to set you up with a consultation, sit down, go through your history. I'm Dr. Jake. Join me again tomorrow for another episode of Ask Dr. Jake.